Hi guys, welcome to what is our first piece of content for what has been a very long time. My name's Chris and I'm joined remotely from their homes, Ben and Jamie. Say hello guys.
Hello, guys.
Oh,
Hey.
Now I feel it's probably worth mentioning at this stage that we did used to produce content for the channel more focused around Let's Play gaming and the like. However, that never really went anywhere and kind of just fizzled out in the end. However, we've more recently
mentioned that.
we've now more recently decided to give it another go, partly due to, or mostly due to, the fact that we're in the midst of a lockdown. We find ourselves with a lot more time on our hands. However, we've decided to give it another go. But this time focus more around tabletop gaming and in particular Warhammer 40k, as it's something that, at least I feel anyway, we're definitely more interested and passionate about, and I'm sure you guys, Ben and Jay, would agree with me on that.
Oh,
Maybe.
I mean,
What's
passion.
40k?
I mean, yeah. I like it. I'm not in love with it.
But you have a very keen interest in the particular hobby, especially Warhammer, would you say?
Yes. I've got a quite a sizable Tyranid collection and a growing Gene Stealer collection. More into the 40k side of things than the Age of Sigmar things. In fact, I know next to nothing about Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, well, I think me and Jay can both, agree with that one. But how much do you reckon you spent roughly on your particular collection then?
Turning around now, it's got to be over £1,000. I reckon it's got to be. Do you count paint and things like that?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, basically, how much have you spent on the hobby as a whole, really, I guess, going into it. So that's everything to do with it.
Yes, I reckon I've definitely cleared over £1,000, but I am the proud owner of 2 of the Forge Mill tiles as well, which I'm quite happy with. And peripherals, I think, like terrain, like don't know if you want to count the display cabinets you've got to buy when when you get so much of this stuff, you need somewhere to put it, and obviously you want to show it off or have it displayed. So display cases are.
Yeah, you want to be proud of what you've done, especially if you're spending so much time and money on the hobby.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not a hobby. You don't spend that kind of amount of money and time on something which is just a little bit of an interest or a pastime. It's So I would class that personally as something that you were a little bit passionate about, maybe. But
well, yes, I mean, I've definitely spent over £1,000 on this stuff, and that's over a course of many years. I mean, a lot of people who poo-poo the hobby say, "Oh, it's expensive and this and that," but it's a long to build up. Like if you don't jump head first into it and you take your time with it, and you're the kind of person like I am, because I can't sit down and smash out loads of models in a day. I'm just not that kind. I just don't have that drive or the will to do that. But if you pace yourself over a large amount of time, then the cost is spread out.
Yeah, and I guess compared to a lot of other hobbies as well, I mean, when the cost is spread out over quite a long period, I mean, £1,000, say that sort of sum over a 4-5 year period, if you think about it, on a yearly cost for a hobby that you get so much enjoyment out of and you spend so much time on, it's not a massive amount compared to other hobbies, common hobbies that other people do and have. So yeah, for the time, I think it's good value for money at the very least. Jay, what do you reckon you've spent on it?
I think Ben's being a bit conservative there, to be honest. I reckon it's far in excess of £1,000.
Oh really?
What? 200 quid, 250 quid on a mat and terrain for that.
Yeah, when
it's not including any models or thing. Yeah,
that's a very good point. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to kind of add up all the bits that I've purchased over the years now, to be honest. But yeah, I reckon I've probably.
You don't buy all of it yourself, do you? You get it as gifts and whatnot.
Yeah, but I mean.
Yeah, I think it's well over £1,000.
Yeah, but I think the total value of it, I know definitely purchasing it through third-party websites has helped to keep the cost down to some degree anyway. But yeah, I think that the main sinker money-wise into the hobby tends to be on paints. Or at least I found anyway, because that's, be it through misuse or just
Misuse? What are you doing, sniffing them?
More so as I
knocking him over.
Yeah, well, knocking him over, yeah. And as I discovered the other day when I came to use this particular paint, I'd left the lid open and I hadn't used it probably for about 2 months prior to that, so it was completely dried up. So yeah, that happens every now and again. But yeah, paints is definitely one of the big sinkers, and they're not exactly cheap, are they, paints?
You know Duncan of Warhammer Community X fame? He's obviously left that now. I watched, I think he started up his own YouTube channel.
He has indeed, yeah. He started his own company.
Yeah.
Rhodes Painting Academy or something.
Yeah.
I saw a good one where he said you can get little ball bearings and just like put them in your paint pots. It'll help keep them for longer. And I was like,
oh, okay.
That's an obvious idea. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
See, it was an aerosol, isn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's little things like that most people just don't think about and overlook. But often they're kind of the most useful tips. So that type of stuff is definitely worth knowing. So I might try that. Little ball bearings, you say?
Yeah, he said particularly in some of the new contrast paints, because I know with one of mine, the Apothecary white one, you get a lot of like sediment at the bottom of it, and you'll shake it and shake it and shake it and shake it, but you don't really seem to shift that sediment. But if you have a little ball bearing in it, obviously it helps break it up a bit. Do
you find the colours different as well?
I don't know. I've not actually tried this, but I can't see how it would affect the colour. I mean, like I say, it's just a ball bearing. It's not going to affect the pigments anyway, is it?
Yeah.
Well, it shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Unless you put like a filthy ball bearing in there.
No, I don't mean in a negative sense.
It's the same colour it's supposed to be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
No, I don't mean in a negative sense. I just mean certain pots of paint anyway. There's a particular gold paint that I have where it kind of splits. So you have, like you say, sediment maybe, or particular part of the paint seems to sink, and then you get a lighter version of the gold sitting on the top. And it's only by really giving it a good shake, or actually in this particular pot now, because it's starting to dry up.
I don't know for sure, mate, but speaking from my personal experience, I think that is just a problem with most of the metallic paints. Lead belcher, I find, is always fine.
Right, okay.
And so is like things like...
I've only found that with gold.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So, yeah, golds and bronzes, that sort of thing. I've noticed it more so with the golds, yeah. But, yeah, like I said, it's only from giving it a very good shake and a stir that you actually tend to get the accurate colour, or that it should be anyway. Because they always say when you go to purchase your paints, you look at the bottom of the pot, and that's what it actually should look like when you put it onto your model.
Where'd you hear that?
I think someone in GW, one of the managers, told me that.
Oh, I never knew that.
It's because if you look at the pot from front on, and then you look at the bottom of it, it is a different sort of tone of whatever colour it is you're looking at, or in some cases anyway, definitely with the golds, I find.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, getting back to it, what we're going to look at covering today. So we're going to recap on basically the Psychic Awakening, as we do seem to have approached the end of this particular story arc. There might be a few extra surprises in store from GW. I mean, time will tell. We'll see what comes out. But we do seem to be approaching the end of that particular narrative anyway. So having a recap on that and just going through the various releases and just talking about what we did and didn't like. Certain ones probably in more detail than others. And then after that, because it's the end of this particular narrative and big release and storyline, what we think might be coming up next, as well as a few other things as well that we feel might be worth talking about. So starting off then, getting into Psychic Awakening, I think the very first release was Phoenix Rising, was it not?
Yes, the
Phoenix Awakening,
Eldari.
not Phoenix Rising, Phoenix Awakening, sorry.
Phoenix Rising.
Phoenix Rising, sorry, yeah.
Yes. The Eldari Jakari one.
Yes. So with that particular release, we had the new Jane Czar model, as well as the Howling Banshees, which is obviously something I'm particularly interested in with collecting Eldar. And I do have the new Jane Czar model. Haven't got round to painting it just yet, but I am looking forward to painting that. And we also had the Dark Eldar. I never quite pronounced his name correctly. It's Drazar, is it? Is that right?
Christ, mate, with most GW names, you've got a good chance of saying it wrong anyway.
Yeah,
I mean,
very true.
I was calling Abaddon, until they said it in like a
I think
video.
it's close enough.
Yeah. And I
mispronounced the Dark Eldar, Chris. It's actually pronounced Drukhari.
Oh, Drukhari, yes. So that's the bit I actually got wrong and all that. And I do believe, was it some new plastic incubi models as well to go along with that character?
It was. Was there anything else in that box set? Or was it just
the
two characters and the two squads?
No, they did have other models inside of the box set. I believe it was a Viper, Wave Serpent, and then for the Eldar...
Wave Surfer?
Serpent. And then for the Drukhari, sorry. Don't want to make that mistake again.
Is that like a serpent?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Thank you, Ben. And then for the Drukhari, it was... trying to remember now. They had... Was it Vipers? That's their particular jet bike equivalent, I believe.
Venoms, I think they're called.
No, Venoms are the big ones, I believe. They're the sort of the big gunboats. They might have had a Venom in there. I'd have to have a look. So in this particular box set, where are we? I've got the page open.
Not Harlequins. Don't know what they're called. I think it begins with a H, but I think we definitely had a Venom in there as well.
And is it the Hellions?
Hellions? Maybe.
Which ones are the Hellions again?
No, the Hellions are the dudes riding the glaives, aren't they? Not the glaives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ride the...
And they did have the wings as well, the wing units. Scourges, yeah. So yeah, on that particular release then, obviously for me, the big thing there was Jane Zar and the Howling Banshees. I mean, there wasn't, having a look back at the old rules in the old codex, there isn't a massive change. The big change really was the added rule for Jane Zar. She used to have this disarming strike. I mean, I never really played with her in a game, so I never sort of got a feel for how good she was in a matchup. But she was quite expensive, as are, and she was at the time. It's quite expensive. I think it was 140 points for her in particular. Now she's come down in points to about 115, and she also has the added ability now, Storm of Silence, I think it is. I can't remember off the top of my head, where she can swap out her attack characteristic and take her number of attacks equals the same number.
Is everything within 2 inches?
I think it's models within... Is it 2 inches,
2 inches.
Or 1 inch? Might be
I could
2.
have sworn it was 2 inches, because 1 inch won't get you very far. But I'm pretty sure it's 2 inches.
Yeah. Which I've used this new model in one game. I can't remember if that was against you, Ben, or against you, Jamie. And I did use that particular move once.
It was against Jamie because she generated all the attacks because you were quite close to like a large group of dudes, and I think you put all the attacks into one guy.
Yeah, it was a character.
Yeah, like a crit 10 or something like that.
Yeah. I think, if memory serves me right, and it tends not to a lot of the time these days, I think she held her own and did quite well. However, her supporting Howling Banshees didn't. I can't
remember those lasting very long.
No, I think most of them had died before they'd even got into combat with your unit. They're quite a squishy unit, quite soft. And to be honest, when they do get into combat, they don't really do a lot. So I haven't really figured out a way of using them correctly. If anyone has any ideas, then obviously do leave a comment and let me know. But yeah, I've not really worked out the correct way of using Howling Banshees just yet. But Jane Zar, she seems to be able to hold her own. She isn't particularly survivable though. She does have a 2-up armor save, but she doesn't have any invuls. So as soon as you start getting AP minus weapons hitting her, then it's going to make things very difficult for her. She doesn't have any of her retinue around her. So
rules wise, I think it is a bit bunk how, Jane Zar is meant to be like lightning fast, isn't she? Like on par with something like a Gene Stealer. So if a Gene Stealer can get a 5-up, I'm fast save, invulnerable save, then surely like the leader of the Howling Banshees can get a 5+. I'm a really fast person save.
Well, in combat, she does have the ability to have a -1 to hit her. There is that. You can then stack that with the stratagem lightning fast reactions. I can't remember if that was 1 or 2 CP. I think it's 2 CP. To have an extra -1 to hit us. So you could use that at an appropriate time if you're up against something particularly tough and you want to try and survive one round of combat. She does always fight first as well. So
the problem is though, most beefy things like Jane Czar is never going to win against monsters.
no, but that's not what she's designed for.
But she's only really going to be good at killing anything like not even like a really good Primaris character. You know what I mean? It's like you've got some Primaris characters like Mephiston for the Blood Angels now. He's strength 10, and he'll probably kill Jinzilla.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I think, like I said, she always goes first unless obviously there's a model with a similar ability or the opposition have charged. But if she does go first, she is a little bit of a glass cannon, I guess. I mean, just having a look at her stats now, the Blade of Destruction does give her +2 strength, taking up to strength 6, which is, nothing to be sniffed at. That's pretty good when it comes to taking out infantry. So with most Space Marine characters, you're wounding them on 3s. Pretty much all Space Marine characters, actually. AP -3, and it does D3 damage. And a straight attacks profile was 4. So, you're hitting on 2s as well.
It's what you expect for like an Eldar character like that. I mean, they're not going to take a punch. They can dish out the pain.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have had an invulnerable save.
I wouldn't expect an Eldar character like that to be tough. I mean, they're not, never going to be a custodian tough, are you? Never, ever, ever. But I'd like to see it with an invulnerable save. Because, like I said,
she does have a 2-up armor save, though, doesn't she?
She does, yeah. But like I said, as soon as you start getting weaponry, which is AP minus, I mean, what's probably the average? This is something I don't honestly know. What would you say weapons-wise? For you guys, anywhere in your armies, then what's your average AP for most of your weapons?
It'd be -1. She'd be looking at making her a Space Marine save, but that's assuming she's not going in combat with something with a bit more oomph to their combat. I mean, in which case you're talking like -2, -3. I mean,
full save, then she's technically a Terminator.
Well,
Terminators have invuls, though.
Yeah, Terminator have invuls.
Yeah, she doesn't have that benefit, though. I mean, she does have other benefits. It's a tough one. I've only used her once.
She's not a Swiss Army knife. I mean, she's not going to be able to do like a wide variety of things, like with Howling Badges.
That's what the rules suggest.
Yeah, hordes, or not beefy characters, just
smash my Cryptek up. So
yeah,
fairly middle of the road characters you can.
Yeah.
Probably take out.
She's good for taking out infantry models, isn't she? Going through units and try and basically carve in a path.
And if you're sending her at Carnifex, then you're probably not using her right.
No, exactly. Yeah, she's not designed for that. And
I'd rather throw her out a squad of Gorns than a Carnifex.
Now,
this is though the beginning of Psychic Awakening with was it say Blood of the Phoenix or Rise of the Phoenix or whatever it was.
That's a Tenacious D song then.
Damn.
Phoenix.
Yes. No. That's the Tenacious D album, my friend, not the song.
Phoenix.
Was there not a song on there?
I think it was a song and the album actually. But correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, because I did ask you the other day, Chris. Didn't GW say something along the lines of every race will get something new? And I think a lot of people...
Every race was going to get like a redone character and a redone squad. Like resin to plastic or something like that.
Well, this is the thing. I was under the impression that they had said that every race, every faction will get something new. Now, whether that was interpreted by the wider community as like, oh, we're all going to get a new model.
I mean, that's...
Obviously, looking back now, we know that's a load of bollocks. because
yeah.
Blur Ball dropped. Where's my NID model? Yeah. I ain't got no NID model. But when they said everyone's going to get something new, and then this box set drops, and you've got 2 brand new resin sculpts for 2 existing characters and new sculpts for 2 new squads, I think everyone got hopeful. This is, as looking back with Psychic Awakening, this is GW putting their their best foot forward in order to sell stuff. Because you can look at this box as well. Look at that. Both Eldar and Dark Eldar have got 2 brand new things there, a new character and a new squad. So that's given like a false impression that everyone's going to get that sort of treatment.
I mean, yeah.
Now they didn't.
It is, if that is what was the case, then yeah, it was clever marketing, and you can't really fault him for that. You wanted to open up the...
I'm fairly sure it was stated somewhere that every faction was going to get a new model.
I'm pretty sure of that as well. I could have sworn they said something similar to that.
It does ring a bell. However, I do think, and I could be wrong, and if people listening to this, if you know the answer, then feel free to obviously put it in the comments. But I think it's more in line with what Ben has said, where they said something on the region of every race is going to get something new. Now that was obviously interpreted as, oh great,
yes,
getting new models, fantastic, everyone's rubbing their hands. But
it's a very broad statement.
But they haven't lied if that was the case, because everyone has had new rules, including Death Watch and what was the other faction covered in the White Dwarf?
I believe it was the Harlequins.
Yes. I know that's a sore subject probably for certain fans.
This is the thing though, right? The last Warhammer Open Day I went to was the time that I realised that I can't ever get excited when GW says something like that, because I'll be setting myself up for disappointment when obviously I don't get what I think that they were on about. Because they use broad statements quite a lot, and and I think the community, a lot of people in the community, do a lot of GW's marketing for them.
I was about to say, yeah, that where does the fault lie? They do use broad statements, yes, but that's commonplace, I think, for trying to hype a particular event up, and I think the fault probably lies with us as fans of the hobby and consumers, that perhaps we get a little bit too, we expect maybe a little bit too much at times. Like we're always going to, on every announcement, we're going to get something new. I mean,
but the thing is, mate, right? We'll talk about it when we get to that particular part of Psychic Awakening, but the most recent one, I think that if it goes down the way I think it's going to go down, I think that it's gone from using broad sweeping statements and letting us fill in the blanks to bait and switch. Like they're saying something, knowing that we're going to think something and assume something, but it's not going to be that. And I think that is not on.
If that is the case, then yeah, I'd probably be inclined to agree. But that's until we sort of know for definite on that, then we can't really say, I guess.
No, you're right. Until it's laid out in front of us, I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
But like I say, the community does do a lot of the hype for GW. I mean, they don't need to say a lot before everyone starts, getting the My Beautiful Mind charts up on the wall and trying to link like crazy ass theories together and what could be coming next. Which is fine. It just shows the community is really passionate about, this hobby. But sometimes that's what I mean. I can't ever let myself get excited or anticipate something now, because it's just like a lot of the time it's just not gonna be the thing I think it's gonna be.
Yeah, but in a way,
and like I said before, this box set I think set up false expectations for the rest of Psychic Awakening by what they released in it and what they showed and maybe what they said.
But I will say this, that both of those units and models, characters, for those particular armies needed updating. So it worked perfectly in terms of, it was a perfect time to update those models, I guess. They're both two very recognised characters, probably two of the biggest, I would say, at least for Eldar anyway, and Drakari I couldn't say for definite, but Jane Zara anyway is one of the more prominent Phoenix Lords, and was definitely needing a new model. There's a lot of old model sculpts, resin models, ancient model sculpts that need updating in the Eldari range, and I think it's the same in Drakari as well, but maybe not quite as bad. But Yeah, I think it's a difficult one to answer on that one. I guess we'll circle back round to that maybe later on. But kind of coming back to then the just finish off with Phoenix Rising. Then, what did you guys think of the models? Obviously, Drazar, or however you pronounce his name, he's a bit of a unit, I think. Looking at his profile.
Putting the rules to one side, because obviously I can't comment on Dark Eldar rules because I don't know. I can't look at one guy's stats in a bubble and compare it to, like, I don't know what the rest of the codex is like. I might be like, oh yeah, Drazar's really good, but someone could be saying, well, no, idiot. I mean, if you get an Archon, you give him this, this, and this, he'll turn Drazar inside out. And I don't know. But as far as the model goes, I think the redone Jinzar is a really, really good model. They've kept the sort of like flowing 80s mane, which I really like. But I think that Drazar, on the other hand, I think he would have been better if they just gave him one, because that's those two swords. Apparently, you can put them together to make one big sword. It would have been so much better for my mind if you just gave him like one big ass sword, like some of the other incubi around him.
Yeah, I can see that. I think looking at the model, he just seems a little bit too busy, and seems to be quite commonplace other than one particular model. We'll talk about that when we get up to that particular release. But I think every release is, or I think pretty much every new model over this particular narrative is stood on some form of rock or something.
I'd say that.
Yeah. And he just looks a little bit too showboaty. Now, the Jane's R model kind of flows really nicely off that. He just looks a little bit odd, and like I said, a little bit too busy.
Like I say, man, I think he would have looked a lot better if he had one big ass sword rather than the two little swords he's got.
Yeah, I can understand that and see that. I do love Incubi. I love the models. And, if I ever switch over and start collecting a Yunari army, then they're definitely a unit I will end up purchasing.
Yeah, the Incubi buying one. They are a great unit visually.
Yeah. So that's Phoenix Rising. After that, we then had Faith and Fury.
Yes.
Can you remember watching this particular release, guys?
No. This one was basically Imperium versus Chaos Space Bros, basically. And this was the first example of where everyone's not going to get something brand spankers. I think that this is the first time that was made evident, because everyone thought, well, a lot of people thought we're going to get a box set for each release, blah 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 blah. But this release made it clear that wasn't the case. I know this sort of ties in with the release of the Sisters box set, but
that was more kind of coincidence, or not coincidence, but that was just how it was timed. It wasn't directly linked to Psychic Awakening. It was just it's alongside that particular.
And being fair, Sisters needed the treatment more than anybody else. They needed that. They made a big song and dance about how they're redoing the Sisters range. So no one could fault that.
It was about time that they had a major release in terms of the actual units they were putting out. So yeah, it was definitely worth.
I'd be interested in the figures of how many people bought that box set, because online a load of people say, "Oh yeah, Sisters, they really deserve it. I'd buy some Sisters." I'd like to see if that translated over, or whether people were just full of it and just saying it because obviously that's the narrative at the time.
Yeah, I don't know how popular that particular army is, to be honest. So yeah, that would be interesting to find out. I don't even know if that information's readily available. So you could try and find it if you want.
I doubt GW would publish the sales figures, would they? And so we had that timed in with the Sisters, and Chaos Space Marines had a new sorcerer. But when you consider that Faith and Fury had rules for each of the Traitor Legions, as well as Black Templars, Sisters of Battle, and I think maybe one or two other.
It was
Imperial.
I think it was Codex Space Marines and then Codex Chaos Space Marines. So I think it was just maybe like the Unbound Chaos Space Marine chapter, and then
They did have a section for World Eaters.
Oh, right, okay.
The Iron Warriors and all that jargon. So, you know how you can have chapter-specific traits for Space Marines? I think they have the same thing for Iron Warriors, World Eaters, and all the other traitor legions that aren't lucky enough to be Death Guard or Thousand Suns.
It's basically some of the smaller ones for the time being, anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, there wasn't really much else, I think, released as part of that. I haven't actually looked at any of the rules specifically for those. I guess the main thing I've tended to try and look out for are any new models that come out as part of these releases.
We don't have any vested interest in the goings on of the Imperium or Chaos, do we? Really?
Well, I have some vested.
Well, yes, but I keep forgetting you do have Grey Knights.
And we'll get up to that in a sec.
But apart from that, I normally tend to look for new model releases as well. And like they say, this was the first instance where it turned around, apart from Chaos Sorcerer and the Improved Sisters range. No one else got anything. Right.
If you think back then, guys, what were your expectations and, I don't know, just expectations, I guess, of what you were hoping might come out for your particular armies? Can you remember back to them? What were you hoping for? Ben, starting with you.
I know what I was hoping for. There was what I wanted, and what realistically I'd be like, yeah, I could see that more realistically than anything else. What I ached and what I yearned for was them to bring out the Parasite of I think it's Mortex, which is an old unit that got cut out of the codex for some stupid reason because it didn't have a model. And I wanted them to bring that back with Blood of Bar. But, it wasn't to be. I was thinking, well, they're probably going to re-release one of the old fine gas models, but in plastic. Probably something like the Red Terror, or maybe the Biovore squads, or maybe do something where they release a new kit where it's like Biovores or Pyrovores, because they're both sort of similar looking things. So you can basically like pick whichever unit you want to make. That's what I was realistically expecting, but I was hoping so much to release Parasite because it was so unbelievably cool. The whole concept of what it was and what it did. And to this day, I can't understand why they cut it out of the codex. I mean, people said, oh yeah, well, it's a licensing thing. They cut it out for the codex because obviously they didn't have a model for it, and other people were doing like, third-party sculpts and that. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that doesn't stop them from re-releasing it and just calling it something slightly different and then copywriting that. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But the rules for it was so cool. Basically, what it did was when something came on via Deep Strike, this whole shtick was it's very alien. Basically, it would implant like Ripper embryos into things, and then they burst out and create Ripper bases. Sort of like a host, like implanting eggs into things. I thought that was so cool, so alien.
Yeah.
And I was hoping for that so much, but
Yeah. Unfortunately, wasn't to be. Jay.
I didn't have particularly high expectations, to be honest. I thought I'd probably get re-released flayed ones in plastic, which, to be fair, I would have been quite happy with. I thought it was going to be a redone Imhotep, because he's sort of like the face of the South dynasty. So that's what I thought it might have been. In terms of hopes, I didn't really hope for anything in particular.
Is there any particular reason for that, though?
For what?
Not having particularly high hopes or expectations for your particular release?
Yes, there is a reason.
Do you care to share?
I don't know. It's Necrons don't usually get a look in my experience.
Yeah.
When was the last new model we had, apart from this Crypt Tech that came with 8th edition? It was about 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Christ, was it that long?
It wasn't that long, but it's quite a few years.
I can't remember if I read correctly, but 5th edition kind of comes to mind. Well, that seems to ring a bell for something.
I think they were re-released. Well, they became a big thing again in 3rd, and then a lot of the lore was retconned around 5th edition, and that's when they brought out a lot of new characters and units.
Yeah.
Why did they retcon the lore? I never got to the bottom of that. Why did they retcon Was it just because Catan was so blatantly OP?
One of the reasons, yeah, they just didn't have a lot of personality, really. I don't think it was just sort of this faceless, skeletal threat out there, whereas the re-release and the new lore sort of gave them a bit more character. They had, well, more characters for one, and it gave them a bit more life rather than just being these sort of mindless slaves.
Fair enough.
Which I'm fine with. A lot of people didn't like it, but I thought it was quite good.
Fair enough. I mean, it moves on quite nicely from what you were talking about before, Ben, to Blood of Baal. Skipping it out. Now, for that one, before we get on to, well, I mean, you've already pretty much talked about your feelings on that announcement.
Yep. Basically, Blood Bowl came out. Blood Angels, you can have the brand blank new model. Tyranids, you can just have some rules, which I'm fine with. The rules are good. You know, be able to select a model from your model or a unit from your arm, basically to evolve it to do something slightly different. It's got good utility. Like I say, I just had the feeling that over this entire release of Psychic Awakening, basically they're trying to fix what was wrong with the rules of certain models. In my experience, definitely with Tyranids, they're trying to fix it with stratagems and command point spending and that kind of thing. Like Lictors, for instance. With a command point, you can now make it so when a Lictor arrives, you can charge something, and you can't get overwatched. But I'm like, that seems like something a Lictor should be able to do anyway if it's invisible.
Does anyone else think this command point thing's got a bit out of hand?
I very much think this command point thing's gone out of hand because, like I just said, it's like, we've written this rule a bit wrong. Yeah, don't worry, we'll fix it with a strategy, a command point.
So
yeah, we will fix that.
You think it's purely a means of trying to balance the game a bit more with a lot of the command points or that we have available now to a lot of the armies?
I think.
Well, if you do have a lot of command points, though, that's the thing.
I honestly think, from my perspective, that they're just trying to get people to use models that aren't normally used or buy models that aren't normally bought with using stratagems, like the Maliceptor. The Maliceptor's got like a 4-up invul save. It could cast 2 psychic powers and denies. It's got +1 to psychic tests, but they gave it a stratagem which, when you activate it at the beginning of the enemy shooting phase, it minuses the strength of all incoming attacks, everything 6 inches around the Maliceptor by 1. Now, a lot of people will say, well, that sounds a bit bunk, but when you've got a lot of strength 8 firepower coming in from, like, say, Dark Reapers into a big toughness 8 monster, now those shots strength 7, so it goes from wounding on 4s to wounding on 5s, which is a big deal.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And that's 2 command points. I'm like, that's good. Arguably, I'd argue the Maliceptor should be able to do that anyway. Otherwise, what is it? It's like, it can cast 1 more psychic power, and it's a monster. Great. I'd rather have a few more Neurothropes and a bigger squad of Zonothropes. Or another Hive Tyrant. You know what I mean? They're trying to fix things that weren't working right with stratagems. And I'm
trying to say stratagems are being used to make bad models good.
Yes, that's basically the short version of what I'm ranting on about.
Right.
What makes you...
Don't you get into this sort of situation where you're desperate for command points and you're trying to do everything you can to maximise the amount of command points you can get?
No, this is it. It all has a knock-on effect.
I know that. At least I do anyway, and I'm no expert at the game, and I more than often get things wrong, as you guys know. But I find I spend most of my command points on the basic stratagems for things like rerolls. So a lot of those new fancy, shiny stratagems that we have, it's really hard to try and utilize them because a lot of the time, big decisions and big events in a game, game turning sort of moments kind of come down to the really basic stratagems and not these new fancy ones. I mean, I don't know whether you guys agree with me on that one.
Mate, I don't agree because, like I said, with this Blood of Baal, I'll use the Lictor one as an example. That's one command point, right? Now, lictors, now they get Overwatch when they come out from reserve. So basically, what can you use them for? Seizing objectives. They're annoying because obviously you get -1 to hit them. But now with that stratagem, you can use it to come out of deep strike, charge something because you get a +1 to your charge as well, I believe. Get into combat. They can't Overwatch you, and now your other squad that's just riding up on that unit can charge it with no Overwatch whatsoever. Like, for instance, Chris, your what are the jetpack units you've got, which got flamers? Shadow Spears, Shadow Spectres?
Shadow Spectres, yeah, Shadow Spectres.
Yeah. That's a squad of 5 high-strength flamers that will absolutely decimate an incoming squad of stabby guns. However, with one command point, I can now tie them up with a lictor, and then the guns can come in and munch.
Yeah, so there's some really good tactical...
It's got utility now.
Yeah.
Well, now, I think lictors should be able to do that anyway, and I'd happily pay a points increase for that if that's the case. But there's models I want to bring, and I wouldn't normally bring them, but now they've released stratagems for them in Blood of Baal that now I want to bring them. It's like, just put that in the rules and make it points appropriate.
Yeah, but I guess the only counter to that I would say is you're not unique in that. That's the same probably for most, if not all, armies, where a lot of players will probably agree with you that they think certain units, characters or whatever should have certain stratagems or certain rules as standard as part of the model, and you shouldn't have to pay command points in order for it to do a particular thing. But if everyone has that, and it's what makes those units particularly special, I guess it makes you think more carefully about how you spend your command points, and just makes it a little bit maybe more interesting when it comes to gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a meta player, and obviously I agree with what you're saying. Everyone thinks a certain way about their own army, but I'm still, like I say, in my own personal opinion, with the exposure I've got to the rules I use, that the Psychic Awakening entire thing has been basically a way of GW to address some things that were unbalanced or not quite optimal in the books to begin with the use of stratagems. And like Jamie said, it just gets a bit out of control with all these new stratagems, because then it turns into like a command point sort of farm.
Yeah.
And when you've got a small elite army like Grey Knights or Custodians, things like that, it's hard.
Now, touching on Grey Knights then, that leads us on to Ritual of the Damned, which was the next release. Big thing for me, obviously, with having a Grey Knight army myself, was something that I haven't used or touched in a very long time, and has just been gathering dust in a cabinet, sadly, because I do love the models, and I'm quite happy with some of the conversions I've done on them. But for a very, very long time, since... I mean, they were pretty much on top of things. They were one of the best armies in 7th, if I remember correctly. With the rules that they had. I don't know if you guys remember. I mean, like I said, I struggle to remember a lot of these things now. But
with the advent of the Grandmaster in Nemesis baby carrier armor, that thing was a beast.
Yeah,
it's just it just broke faces wherever it went.
Yeah, but then I think since
start of 8th, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, the start of 8th, they got their index pretty early on, if not one of the first, and they were doing okay at the time. And then when everything. Go on.
Was it not the first one?
I honestly can't remember.
It was. I think it was one of the first ones, if not the first.
Yeah. So it did well, because no one else had an index, so they had updated rules and it was doing good. But then since then, they just took a dramatic downturn, and they have, as everyone will agree, they've just been unplayable.
If the performance of Grey Knights could be tracked with a line graph, I can tell you exactly where it hits the crater. It's when they said, right, you can't deep strike turn 1 into your enemy's lines anymore.
Yeah.
And that was it. It just the line just went straight through the fucking floor with Grey Knights.
Well, they had other issues as well. They were still a very expensive army for for what's supposed to be an elite army, but in truth, they weren't really all that elite compared to when you compared them against other elite armies such as Death Watch and Custard Creams. They just didn't really stack up. They were expensive, but they died really easy. And like you said, they just had their biggest sting, which was being able to deep strike and just be able to get into the enemy's faces turn one.
Yeah, deep strike straight onto your enemy's face, and then just hit him with that Grandmaster in the Nemesis Dreadnought armor. Yeah. That was brutal. Yeah.
However, since obviously the release, they are now doing so. I'm told anyway. I mean, I've not actually got the boot myself yet. I will do as and when things go back to normal and orders can return to normal in terms of purchasing them from GW. But they seem to be doing quite well. They're not one of the top meta teams, from my understanding, but they're doing quite well, and they're playable at the very least.
Yeah. So and with that release, you got a brand new Dark Angel character. No brand new Drogo though.
Yeah, I really expected them to come out with at least a new character, updated character. Drago would have been great, but
Stern, he's ancient.
Stern, yeah, there's Castle and Crow
boy.
Yeah, so it was a shame not to see an updated model for one of those characters, but who knows, maybe in the future.
You could primarify any of them.
Yeah, I was having a look at that.
Would be happy with it.
Yeah, I was having a look at that in terms of how you could perhaps use some of the new Primaris models to kind of convert them into Grey Knights so that they feel a little bit more up to date with what's been released for the other chapters. Because the models now, when you compare them to them, they don't quite match up in terms of the look and feel of it. I mean, the Terminators and the Paladins still look really good, I must say. But yeah, the basic Marines, not so great.
Yeah, not so hot there.
After that, it was the Greater Good, which was the only thing I can remember from that is Tau and their new Commander Shadow Sun. I don't know if you can remember that particular model.
Yeah, Shadow Sun. Yeah, it's a good model, that new releases. Very good. Then that was also Genestealer Cults and Astra Militarum.
She was very typical of Tau. She's a very typical sort of Tau character and Tau model in terms of strapped full of guns, by what I can remember. I don't know if you can you guys remember the model? I mean, have a look now if you can bring it up.
I can remember the model, yeah.
There's not a lot of the new models I don't like.
The Tau, I think most of the Tau range, if not all the Tau range, will age really well.
Yeah.
Just because of the way it is.
Yeah. And they are fairly, compared to most other armies, they are fairly new. And I can't remember. I'm curious to know when Tau were actually released, what year it was.
Oh, it was ages and ages and ages ago. I was in college.
Right, okay.
I was in college.
Around 3rd edition, just after, maybe?
Right.
Third, fourth, I'd say.
Do they have many?
As a couple, I guess.
Yeah, do they have many resin models? I'm not quite sure how old the army range is in that respect.
The stealth suits were resin, but they've been redone. I don't know if they're fly cast anymore. What else was there? I don't think much else, mate. The Ethereals, the Ethereal cast. But I don't even know if you can get Unshi anymore.
No, I can't remember.
I remember when that first came out, I thought it'd be a cracking idea for my Unshi. I think it was Unshi anyway, because it was the Ethereal with the big double-handed blade to get in close combat with the Nightbringer before Necrons got redone. I thought you got this, man. You got this.
I can't remember how that ended, Ben, but I've got an idea.
That was only going to ever end one way.
Yeah, he used to be a beast.
Yeah. Most of those types of characters and models, though, used to be a lot more fearsome.
With that, yes. But with that release, Astra Militarum, they didn't get any models, they just got updated rules. Same with Genestealer Cult, but I can't blame that. Genestealer Cult is, as far as ranges go, brand spankers. And everything in the Genestealer Cult range is, spot on as far as design goes. So
yeah, design and models wise, I wasn't expecting Genestealer Cult to get anything new, but from what I gathered, people aren't too happy with what rules came out for them. Things weren't addressed, and it's kind of been a bit of a disappointment on that front. I don't know if you can shed any more light on that.
Well, yeah. Basically, the stratagems that they got and the sort of build your own creeds, they weren't. You're never going to give up. The idea is with these new stratagems, and particularly the build your own creed stuff, where you like take two minor attributes and combine together to make your own sort of design faction, like your own high fleet or your own dynasty, your own craft world, that kind of thing. The idea was that you could look at these combos and try and make something that would work really well with your style of play. But with the G-Steel cult, no two combo of these sort of like single abilities is ever going to beat the ones already available in the book. Like, it's just not going to happen. I mean, a lot of people I know were hoping for one that sort of focused on the mining weapons, like a sort of like a miners' uprising sort of thing, like which would involve the use of things like the drill dozer blades, the heavy rock cutters, the heavy rock grinders, the heavy rock cutters, things like that, to increase how efficient they are at using the mining tools. They didn't get that. And I think that's what people were disappointed in. There's no combination of those abilities that will ever make you consider them, rather than using the existing cults that are in the book. The Four-Armed Emperor, the Pauper Princes, the Rusted Cog, because those ones are really good. I mean, the Four-Armed Emperor one is amazing, and no matter how you play, it just feels like if you make your own, you're always going to be at a slight disadvantage rather than just taking the one out of the book.
Yeah,
I think that's the same with other books, though.
That is the same, I think, with a couple of others anyway. I've got to admit, looking at there are some interesting Eldari ones, I've got to admit, and I do want to experiment with that a little bit more. But when I do have a search through my release, I got to admit, most of the time I always end up coming back to the main.
There is some combinations in the Tyranid book that I've looked at and thought are quite good, but the problem is I just don't have the models to make it as optimal as I'd want to make it. Like the one I played you guys with, I think it was last time, where I gave them the one that made all scything talents -1 AP, and if you outnumber something, it's another -1 AP. It was like the massive horde army. Now, I'd want to just take all Staddy guns and just swamp the board with that, and that'd make it really fun to play. But I just didn't have the numbers. That kind of thing. And I mean, there's another one in there which I've also looked at, which means anything that's got a multiple wound profile regenerates every wound every single time. So every single monster, every single Tyranid warrior, every turn will get a wound back, which is quite interesting and quite good if you could think about it that way.
So,
but with the G-Steel Cult Codex, that wasn't the case. None of them even were interesting.
Yeah.
To even consider.
Yeah.
And then that was the big problem.
So a bit of a letdown on that front then.
From what I gather, yes.
Yeah. After the Greater Goods, probably for me, at this point anyway, it was the release of the series was the Saga of the Beast, and the release of the new models for Ghazghkull and Blackmane.
Some other guy no one cares about.
Yeah.
Blackmane.
Some other guy that's going to die horribly in close combat with Ghazghkull.
What's the little goblin that comes with Ghazghkull? What's his name?
I don't know.
Makari.
Makari, yeah. He's supposed to be quite good, I think, rules-wise.
I want him in my army.
He's got 2+ invul save. He's got better invul save than Jinzar. He's got no invul save.
Yeah. He's obviously meant to go with Ghazghkull, but from a model point of view, I can't comment on rules. Well, the odd rule maybe, and we can touch on that. But as a model goes, he's meant, one, he's not standing on a rock, probably because no rock could support him, but Ghazghkull is just an absolute beast. And
he's bang on.
Yeah, the model reflects the character, from what I understand anyway. I think he's absolutely spot on. He's... Or what I would have said, the release, the potential model for the year of the year. So I just think, he's absolutely spot on. He's cracking as a model. I don't know what you think, Jay. Did you? I mean, what was your reaction when you first saw him?
Yeah, he's a chunky boy, isn't he?
Oh yes, he's been hitting the gym, literally just hitting it.
No, like I said, I don't know too much about the other rules for him. I haven't seen the
One
book.
comment I'll make on the rules, though, is he's got one in particular which I like, and I think more stuff could benefit from. Which I think is you can only take like
That's
3
exactly
or 4
what
damage per turn.
Yeah,
I am on the opposite side to you on that one, Jay.
Yes, before you do that's exactly what I was going to go into, Jay, and I am with you on this one. I do think there are certain models which could benefit from that, and after discussing this with Ben the other day, at first we thought we'd got it wrong. We thought it was he could only take 4 wounds a turn, and that was it, or like a particular battle round, and I just thought that's overpowered. That's ridiculous. However, it is 4 wounds per phase, which I think is actually realistic. It's definitely more realistic, and I think that's a lot more interesting. And I think that should definitely, in my opinion anyway, as I've heard other people say, it should be something that's implemented for certain models, such as the Demon Primarchs, because they cannot hide behind other models. They just get shot off the board turn 1. And you don't get to play them, and I just think having that particular rule in place for models like that just make them a little bit more survivable. Make them a lot more survivable, and they just last long, and you can actually use the model.
Yeah, I think doesn't Abaddon have a similar rule to that?
I'm not sure.
I think he does. How is Abaddon under 10 wounds?
He's a character, yeah.
I think he's under 10 wounds, yeah.
I know he's a character. Has he got under 10 wounds?
Yes, I think he's under 10 wounds, yeah. I couldn't say for certain what it is, but yeah, I'm pretty sure he is.
That's even better.
He's just a dude in Terminator Arm at the end of the day, isn't he? So I don't see why he wouldn't be under 10 wounds.
So you're saying it's only going to be good for characters that can be targeted?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah. Otherwise it gets a little bit... That particular rule, anyway, in its form for Ghazghkull, if you can hide behind models and have that rule, I think that is taking the mick a little bit. But
it would depend entirely on how many wounds you've got, wouldn't it? If you don't take 3 wounds per phase and you've got 6 wounds, then that's 2 phases.
Yes, but you can hide behind a retinue of models, can't you, really? You can hide behind a lot of models, and as we find with our current characters... Well, with our current models, we don't find that, or at least I haven't anyway, I don't find that to be too much of an issue unless I've messed up and I've placed it wrong, and you or Ben have been able to either deep strike in or whatever to be able to then target them. But I think definitely for characters, I don't think it should be the case for knights, no matter what the race. The same for my Wraith Knights. It doesn't really fit the character or the model. But for Demon Primarchs, yeah.
The problem I have with this rule, it's a good rule, and I think it works really well with someone like Ghazghkull, because he is like the head honcho of the orcs at the moment, isn't he, in the lore? So I think that's
basically with all the firepower that's out there in 8th edition, he's not going to last past 1 turn anyway.
No, he's going to get smashed straight off the table.
If he didn't have that rule, yeah.
If he didn't have that rule, because in combat he is a monster in close combat. But then again, part of the reason he's a monster in combat is because he's got that rule. It sort of feeds into itself. The reason he's so good is because he's got that rule. If he hadn't had that rule, he's just another big guy with a big stick. He could be shot to death. My problem is like, if this rule starts migrating, where is it going to stop? And I could just see this kind of thing open, just people absolutely taking the piss with it.
I guess it'll be the same as Mortal Wounds, won't it?
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, if that's the case, now I'm going to put my guy who can't die, you can only take 4 wounds a turn or 5 wounds a phase or whatever it is. I'm going to put him in a pod. I'm going to combo him with this, drop him down in front of your army, get that charge off, no problem. And now I'm in combat. You can't run away. You can't shoot me. I'm just going to sit here smashing boys to death. But God knows how many turns it is.
Well, you have the potential of still losing 12 wounds in one particular battle round.
Because if you're in combat and you time it right, people can't run away. I can just see this kind of rule, people running away with it and just creating absolute mayhem with it. I think it should stay a nice rule that's completely unique to Ghazghkull, and the orcs. And I think it should stay there because then it'd be like, oh god, there's another one of those stupid can't die in so many turn models. Whereas right now it's just like, oh god, there's Gazgul, he's a beast. I better fucking watch out for him. You know what I mean?
I mean, people listening in, leave your particular opinion on that. Do you agree that it should just be unique to Gazgul and the Orcs, or should it be included on just a key selection of units? Like I say, Demon Primarchs and the like. Jamie, is there anything in particular that you thought it might be best placed on?
I mean, it doesn't really apply to stuff in my army, I guess.
No.
I just think it's a nice rule to have. I mean, if I did have a particularly beefy character, like, I don't know, 12 to 15 wounds, then it would be nice because, like I said, it's going to get blown off the table in turn 1 if it's good enough.
Yeah, which is normally the case, I think.
You never bring that model, which is, it's kind of redundant you buying it if you can never use it.
Yeah, and I think, we found that at times you've only used it a couple of times, but I forget the model's name, the Forge World, Scarab Walker.
Construct, yeah.
And same.
Welcome to my world, Chris. How many times have I brought my Dimmacaron to last, not even one turn, just bang straight off the table? I can't even use it that well. I've never had any luck with it, and it still dies first thing.
No, that's not true. It was good. It was great back in 7th. It was amazing back in 7th.
Oh yeah, but even in the last game I played against Jamie, right? He had the Swarm Lord, a certified monster in close combat, and the Dimmacaron, who has a track record of absolute abject failure, and he still targets that thing first.
It's more like past time now.
Yeah, it's like it's not so much. Oh, it needs to die. It's like, oh, that'll just annoy me.
Oh yeah, that's kind of yeah, exactly, and that's kind of what me and Jamie live for, to be honest. So
it's like, are you sure you want to shoot that? The Swarm was just gonna jump right down your throat the next turn, and he did.
And he did, yeah. I couldn't help myself. I knew he was the bigger threat.
Yeah.
To be fair, I mean, the Dimmacaron's model is what the Swarm Lord should look like. It's kind of like the model should be swapped in terms of what they actually do.
Yes, yeah, it should. The Dimmacaron should kick arguably more arse than the Swarm Lord, and the Swarm Lord should just be like the Dimmacaron. And Christ, I hope that thing gets its rules looked at when they use the Forge World indexes. I can't bring it out again and just be embarrassed. It's like I'm bringing my drunk son to every party, and he just keeps making a tit of himself and me.
You have a son?
I want to love him, Chris. I want to love my Dimmacaron. I want to. And I should do. Like I said, in 7th edition, he was a monster. But I just don't have any luck with him in 9th. I know a load of people are going to say, oh, you're probably not using him right. You're right. I'm probably not using him right. But I'm trying to get from A to B and stab things to death. I don't understand how much more simple I can make it.
Anyway, getting away from this particular touchy subject.
Yeah.
Coming back to, it's near the end of the particular story arc now, but Engine War, one of the more recent ones to be announced. For this, I guess the big thing the only new models as part of that release, it was Mechanicus. What other races were there in that one? It was the Knights.
I kind of feel like everyone's forgot about Engine War now. They're all talking about War of the Spider and Pariah.
Yeah, it went very quiet.
What happened with Engine War? Did anything come out?
No, well, that's the thing. I think Engine War, and since then, because that was around the time when everything went into lockdown, they haven't been able to actually ship anything out. So whether or not they're actually holding back on what they announce for these particular... Because we haven't seen any rules. We've seen models released for Engine War and what's coming out. Or at least we have for Mechanicus, which is their new transport flyer. It can be, I think, made into 3 different things. I have got the different names written down, whether or not I say them right. And then they've got the actual jetpack units. And then there was the mounted sort of cavalry units as well. I mean, Ben, we discussed this the other day. Jay, I don't know if you agree. It's at least with the jetpack units and the flyers, or this particular flyer, I get the sort of style that they're going for with Mechanicus as a whole, in terms of the steampunk sort of look and
I
feel.
like the way you said that.
Very diplomatic.
I get what they're going for.
Yeah.
I suppose.
No, I get what they're going for with the original, with like, you know, Mechanicus when it was initially released. It's going for steampunk. It was cool. It had a nice character about it. I could get behind it. I was into it. But these more recent ones,
this, by the way, cool.
So it can be made into the flyer anyway. Can be made into 3 different units. So it's the Transvector, the Fusilave, and then the Stratoraptor.
Stratoraptor.
Someone is taking the piss. GWHQ. Right. Oh, they come on. It's like, what absolute bollocks nonsense name can we make up and have them swallow? And basically now that person's going to be safe in the knowledge that he's making people up and down the country say Stratoraptor.
Well,
just googled Stratoraptor and that's a Pokemon.
I would have thought it would have been a band.
You might be better then, Jay, because again, I might not be pronouncing it correctly.
Are you sure you said that right?
No, I'm not. I'll be honest. No, I'm not. So it might be worth you just popping on to Warhammer Community's website and having a look at the this particular saga of Psychic Awakening and just seeing what you think. The other models, the jump pack infantry or whatever they are. Again, interesting names for them. There's 2 units you can make out of that particular set. Sterilizers, kind of handy for right now, I reckon. And then you've got the Skystalkers. So, yeah, again, it's something about those particular designs I prefer the industrial steampunk look. And I just think it looks a bit odd. And all I need to say, really, to get Ben going is their transport boat.
Oh, my God. That thing is so fucking stupid. That thing is so fucking stupid. Obviously, taste is subjective because you can take any faction of 40k you want, and there's reasons why you don't like it, why you like it, things like that. But that thing, I fucking hate it. I hate it. I mean, it's not often that GW release a model. I can see a model and go, I can see why people like it, but I'm not a fan. But that thing.
They borrowed that from World War II.
They borrowed it from World War II, Jamie. They stole it lifted it verbatim from World War II. It is bad.
It's not the prettiest mod.
No, considering they're supposed to be kind of the advanced race as part of the Imperium in terms of when it comes to technology. These designs just seemed, I don't know, they don't really kind of fit the bill. They don't work, in my opinion, anyway. And again, people listening, feel free to say we're wrong.
It's an actual hovercraft.
Yeah, it is.
Chris,
you'd expect something futuristic. Yeah, you would expect something, either treads or as I said to Ben, something like I don't know what you would call them, but kind of like hover discs on the underside of that, just trying to lift it off so it's always floating off the ground. A bit like the new, is it Repulsor tanks for Primaris?
Yeah, I think so, but I don't know, guys. It's just that fucking tank was the fucking beginning of Admech going downhill for me. It's like that tank, and now the fucking Darwinist. It's like, what are you doing? It's like you started off so promising with the big robots and the electro priests and the people hardwired into tank treads. I forget the name right now, and like that's really cool, really interesting stuff. And then you do this, like.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all for making bold decisions and that kind of thing, but Christ, man, read the room.
It's a niche aesthetic, isn't it? They will appeal to some people.
That's it. I mean, taste is subjective. Some people might just turn around and say, "What the fuck are you talking about? You don't know what you're on about. You're an idiot. Shut up. Go away."
To be fair, I mean, the further they get away from spider tanks, the better, from my perspective.
Well, so you just want the monopoly on spider tanks, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Engine War, it's not really happened yet, is it?
No, and the same can be said for the next one being War of the Spider. We know very little about that, other than that Fabulous Bill has got a new model. So he looks good. I think a lot. The thing I've got, like you said, Jay, there hasn't been one disappointing model out of this whole series. And what I do think they are getting right is just, even if you don't particularly like the design, as we've just discussed with the Mechanicus models, the detail that they're now putting in on models is, top notch.
Oh yeah, they're second to none in that aspect, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, one of the recent announcements that they did on the previews. It was an Age of Sigmar model, I believe, Ben. I can't remember what it was, but it was like an elven sort of mistress with a veil going across her face, and I just think that looked amazing. So what they're actually putting out now in terms of quality of model is fantastic. Like you say, whether you agree with the model design or not, you can't fault them on the actual detail that they're putting in. So it's very exciting going forward in terms of what they might
given
be.
the cost, it's kind of what you would expect, really.
Yeah, well, that's a topic for another day, maybe. But yeah, War of the Spider, as we said, we don't know too much more about that. And then coming on to the final one, and guess one that we'll probably have a little bit more to say about, being Pariah. Now, before we talk about what was actually released, the initial announcement for Pariah was an interesting one. When we first heard of the name, we all, or the three of us, pretty much, I think, were in agreement what we expected to come out of that. Pariah? Oh, Necrons haven't been released yet. It must be Necrons. They must be getting new Pariah models. Ooh, this is exciting. And then it was, I forget what it was called. It was a different name for it. But we had a Sisters of Battle model and a Harlequin.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And Jamie, just could you describe what you were feeling and thinking at that moment when you saw that particular release?
I guess you could call it exasperated resignation.
Okay.
Yeah, well, obviously I was expecting some kind of Necron release.
Yeah.
But, the first two models to come out are Sisters of Battle and a Harlequin character. So, obviously somewhat disappointed.
Yeah. And I think from what I remember reading at the time, that how they sort of worded the particular narrative around that release kind of almost moved away from the idea that the Pariah was nothing to do with Necrons. It was something completely...
The name of that Harlequin character is Pariah, apparently.
Right.
And when I read that, I thought, right.
Yeah.
They're trolling me hard right here.
As they were with a lot of, I guess, of the fan base, or at least some of the fan base anyway. And, I don't collect Necrons, but that irked me. I thought that was taking the mick.
So, GW, basically what you're saying is, one of the factions last to be released is really suffering in Psychic Awakening because they don't have any Psychers. Really struggle right now, army-wise, because...
Anti-Psyker.
Yeah, because, they don't really have any Psychers. And basically, we're going to name an edition of Psychic Awakening off a model that they used to have that used to be really good against Psychers, and then we're not going to show you that model.
Yeah, well, nonetheless,
I think
that wasn't...
I'd say to GW right now, you need to tread very fucking carefully. Because there's being broad statements, and then there's, like Jamie said, trolling people hard.
Yeah. So,
having said that,
since then, there was obviously, in the last preview, the big reveal where we had some Inquisition model, but who cares? And then what has...
I think that's been the collective response from the internet.
I mean, it's a very nice model. Don't get me wrong; it's really nice.
Yeah. I mean, everyone thinks she's cool. But,
yeah. Anyway, then there was the big announcement, and the video was fantastic. I got to admit, the release video for this saga. Yeah. We'll come back to that. Yeah. I thought that was possibly the best that they've done in terms of the announcement trailer. And then you had, and I never get his name right, Jay. I never remember it. What's the character's name?
Russ.
You were breaking up there, mate. Just say that again.
Illuminor Caesaris.
That's it. And as I said earlier, before then, Gazgul was going to get my vote on model of the year, but this thing is just it's a work of art. It's amazing. I love it. Yeah, I mean, I won't talk too much on it. Jay, this is kind of your moment, really. What were your thoughts on the model? What do you like, and what perhaps do you not like about it?
There's not a great deal I don't like. It's beautiful. It's, I wasn't expecting anything like that. I'd heard it was going to be Caesarus. I've heard rumours over months, but yeah, I wasn't expecting anything to quite that degree. Yeah, can't wait to get my hands on it.
Now we've only seen one particular rule related to the model. Before we get to that, actually, I mean, what is it about what in terms of the model design? Is the one particular feature about it that kind of stands out to you, that you like the most out of it? Is there anything in particular on it?
The size.
The size
is massive.
Yeah.
It looks like 3 times bigger than its previous model.
Yeah.
It's got the presence and this really powerful looking pose.
And in terms of characters, I guess it's probably, I mean, you do have obviously your what are your god things called? The Catan. It's gone out, yeah. You do have your Catan.
You should know that one, Chris.
I know. I've been beasted by them so many times before. But you've not really had, in terms of characters, you've not had anything which has been a sort of centerpiece model. Nothing on the scale of like what you've seen with perhaps Abaddon or Gulliman or, anything like that in terms of scale and stature.
No. I mean, all the characters are a fairly standard sort of humanoid size, really. So that's kind of, it really stands out.
Now, the one rule that has been released, going back to that then, was it's trying to remember off the top of my head. I haven't got it open in front of me, so I can't get it exactly right. But something about psychers on
overcharge, I think it was called.
Yeah, so any psyker within 9 inches that rolls any double, doesn't matter what the double is, suffers perils of the warp. Or was it D3 wounds? I forget. Is it a straight D3?
Yeah, perils is D3.
Yeah, I know, but do they have an opportunity to kind of,
deny it?
Deny it, or any sense? I can't remember the exact wording on it.
No, I don't think so.
So it's just a straight D3 rules.
Is it classed as suffers perils of the warp or just suffers D3 wounds? Because those two things are very different.
I can't remember, to be honest. I think it might be perils.
If you suffer D3 wounds, that's just D3 wounds. But if you suffer perils of the warp, which is D3 wounds, and you die, it has other ramifications.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Now, in my opinion, it is only the first kind of preview into that model. And in truth as well, if you think back to Engine War before it and War of the Spider, none of those models, as far as I'm aware, have had any sort of preview on their updated stats or rules. And I think that's probably because this is such a big release when it comes to Necrons. It kind of warranted having a little bit extra than just the model itself. Now, I think it's an interesting rule. I know something similar in a different army does have it. I can't remember what it is. I just think that it is a passive ability, I believe, but I just think it should be double the range to make it a little bit more viable. And it's not something I've come up against, so I could be completely wrong with that, and that could just break it. It'd be interesting to know what people think on that, but I don't know. What do you guys think of it?
Should be denied the witch range.
Okay.
It's not great, is it? There will be uses for it. I just think it's the range it's way too short. He's not a character. Well, typically, historically, he's not a character you want to be getting close to anything. He's a cryptech. He's more of a support unit.
Okay.
Well,
so you don't want him within 9 inches of anything.
Like Chris said, we don't know the full scope of what he's capable of yet. But that being said, I still think he should be denied the witch range.
I also have a very strong suspicion that he is going to be accompanied by a new, if not updated, unit. And I still think, now that we've kind of got past...
We don't know that yet.
No, we don't know that yet, but getting past the trolling stage, I would be very surprised if we don't see a new pariah unit. Something about, I can't remember exactly what was said in the preview, hinted that there might be something around the corner in terms of pariahs. I can't remember exactly what it said, but it just, to me, it sort of shouted, "Oh, pariahs!" But time will tell.
Like I said to you before, I am not letting myself get excited over maybes, hints at, possiblies, right? Until we see the models, then an 8 coming out. And if they call this issue Psychic Awakening Pariah, and they don't have actually pariahs for the one faction that used to have them, but they were removed for some reason, and need the pariahs, and they don't release them, I don't collect Necrons, but I'd be fucked off with it.
And I mean, narratively speaking, it's kind of the time you would do it, isn't it?
Yeah, it lines up. It lines up so perfectly.
Yeah, they need something to. Yeah, they need something to kind of mitigate all the psychic shenanigans that goes on in that particular phase, because you don't have anything. So yeah, I think it makes sense.
It can be frustrating.
Yes, I can imagine it being very frustrating, especially when you're playing someone like me with my Eldar. So
both of you.
Yeah, both of us. Now, that kind of wraps up the Psychic Awakening and what's being released for it. So moving on, I know we've been talking for a good while now, so I don't want to spend too much more time. But a couple of other things I guess we'll touch on. Just quickly, really, what do you guys both think is around the corner next? If this is the end of Psychic Awakening and there isn't anything else as such to be announced, in terms of big announcements anyway, because I don't think there are any more previews coming up just yet. I think the next one is later in May. But if this is the end of Psychic Awakening, what is next for GW?
Personally, I can't see a ninth. I know a lot of people have been rumoring that 9th edition's around the corner. I mean, we've seen leaked images of shipping manifests and things like that. But I don't think there's a need for 9th edition yet. I mean, I can see them releasing an updated rulebook with all the FAQs in it. I can see that. And, with the Psychic Awakening lore in it, yeah, like an 8.5 edition. And then I can see them re-releasing the codexes again, but with all the Psychic Awakening stuff in them. You know what I mean? For each individual codex. Basically, just the same again, but this time you can consolidate it all down to your own personal book. I can see that. But I can't see a 9th edition happening. Not yet. There's no need for it. I mean, 7th edition was...
I was just about to say that. Do you two want a 9th edition?
No, not yet. No. Personally, no, I don't. What I do want to see, and it seems to be the case across the board with most people anyway, I can't see why you wouldn't want it, is a consolidation of all the updated rules, all the FAQs, and just all the rules for updated rules and points, etc. for your models. So rather than... Because I like having a physical book when I play. I know there is benefits to having, perhaps a tablet with a digital copy of it, because you can just update it then. But I like having a physical book. And what I don't want to do, it's already hard enough, but what I don't want to do is have to keep jumping between 4 or 5 different books and then have to look something up online because I'm not quite sure or whatever to try and hunt, for these updated stats. I just want everything in one place so you can find it more easily.
Well, you could be looking at a potential 4 books right now. The rule book, if you're not, au fait with all the rules and all the FAQs. You've got your factions rule book. You've got your Psychic Awakening version of the faction, and then you've got your Forge World rule book if you're using Forge World models.
Yeah, well, Forge World
books. There needs to be a better way to deal with all the bookkeeping, doesn't there? It is a nightmare.
I mean, there was also the chapter approved books as well, which had all the different missions, etc. in it. It's away from the original core rule book. So yeah, there has to be a consolidation, and hopefully that's what I completely agree with you, Ben. For me, it should be a 0.5 version, which is just that consolidation. Jay?
Exactly.
Yeah, that'd be fine for me. I don't think I want a rehashing of all the rules just yet. I quite like what 8th edition's done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it still needs a little bit more time to grow. Now, just very quickly, actually, what do you guys... I did hear someone else suggest this. What do you think of a slight change, as and when 9th does come out? Okay, there normally is, a fairly... Or there was between 7th and 8th in terms of a major change in terms of how the play style and how the turns worked, etc. But what do you think about basically each player taking sort of a turn each, if that makes sense? So like in the movement phase, Ben would move a unit, then I would move a unit. And in the shooting
at the same
phase,
time, essentially.
yeah, effectively, one person, then the next person. Rather than I do all of my moving, shooting, psychic, combat, and then Ben does it. Because there are issues which we've all discovered, and no one will be obviously alien to, where if you don't go first, if you don't get that initial first turn, it can be pretty catastrophic depending on the deployment, where you just find most of your forces that you've deployed get just some of the key units, it could be characters, it could be some of your elite units, just get blown off the table.
Mate, no, I'm dead against what you're saying, because that would draw the game out massively.
Would it?
Mate, yeah. If you have to take in turns, like you move one, then you move one, then you move one, then you move one, then you move one, it's going to draw the game out. It really is. If you do the same for the shooting phase, I know what you're saying, Chris, where you can I've been on the receiving end of it, a lot of people have, put your thing down, bang, pick it back up again, take it home, fuck off, thank you for coming. That kind of thing. It's annoying because you spend your time, you bought it, you built it, you painted it, you want to play with it. Fair enough. But that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make if the game isn't drawn out by another 45 minutes to an hour. And I can honestly see that happening.
I mean, without actually trying it, wouldn't know, would we?
I don't think so. I don't think it will draw it out too much. I think there might be a slight increase because you're going to be a little bit more reactive to what the person's just done. So you might take a little bit more time, I guess, in terms of determining what you then move or shoot with, etc. But I just think it means that units that you bring just have more of a chance of being involved in the game. I just think it makes them a lot more playable. And I personally would like to see it, but, I'm interested to know what other people think. Yeah, it'd be interesting. And I guess there's nothing really stopping us from trying that, I guess, and just in terms of maybe with less than 2,000 points, just in case. Yeah. So, kind of coming to a couple of the last points then that I wanted to touch on for this particular episode. Kind of a fun question for the both of you. What army are you most looking forward to getting something new, like a big release? Like, I guess, on the scale of maybe Sisters or something like that. So, quite a big monumental release for an army, but it isn't something that you already collect. Ben, I'll come to you first.
Dark Eldar, or Dukari. More specifically, the Homunculi Covens. As much as I am in love with Tyranids and their hot sister/brother gene stealer cults, I do love myself some S&M perverts in space.
Okay,
Who doesn't?
Good answer.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. Okay, Jay?
I guess probably, I don't know. I'm a sucker for a Demon Primarch, so I like to see Angron.
So you're saying World Eaters?
They're just amazing. I'd love to see what he looks like.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. That was exactly what I was going to say. World Eaters, definitely. The range, I was talking to Ben earlier in the week or last week. I kind of forget what day we're on. And I, as soon as I've got my Eldar done, I was thinking, right, I'm going to start collecting World Eaters because I love them. I like the idea of getting demons. You get big models. There's the ideal, the anticipation of maybe Angron coming out as a Demon Primarch and how cool he's going to look, and also what stat line he's going to get, because I reckon he's going to be an absolute monster.
I would rather, this might not be very fashionable, I would rather see Lorgar or Perturabo and their own individual legions getting their own codex, rather than the obvious answer, World Eaters Angron or Emperor's Children Fulgrim. I'd rather see either Lorgar as a Chaos Undivided Demon Primarch or Perturabo for the Iron Warriors, because if you look at the 30k models, the Forge World ones, Lorgar is meant to be, it looks pretty good. It is nice. He looks relatively refined in comparison to all the other Primarchs of that range, because he's meant to be the spiritual. He was the spiritual leader, wasn't he? He was the first traitor Primarch.
Yeah, but as the Primarchs go, he wasn't particularly a dominating character. He wasn't someone who stood out from his brothers. He was pretty. He was kind of like the runt of the litter.
He started the Horus Heresy.
Yeah, no, he was. Yeah, he did. He manipulated
And-
people. He was clever where he wasn't particularly maybe strong. I don't know. Someone who's a bit more in tune with the law might be able to clarify that. But from what I remember reading, yeah, he was. But he was easily led and manipulated.
Well, this Lorgar, because obviously I'd like to see an undivided Demon Prince Primarch and see what they could do with that. And Perturabo, because Perturabo is 30k model looks like he's more machine than man.
Is Perturabo still even alive?
Yeah, he's alive. Yeah.
Okay.
And God knows what his Demon Primarch version would be like. I reckon it should be like if you took a suit of Terminator armor and gave it Bane formula and just stuck a load of guns on him.
Yeah. So selfishly, I would say, obviously, word bearers, as I've already said, and as would Jamie.
World Eaters.
World Eaters. Yeah, word bearers is what you've just said. World Eaters. So yeah, I guess the last thing I wanted to ask you about, and to just finish on, we had the most recent, or the last episode, be it very short as they all are, but nonetheless amazing in my opinion, but the last episode of the Astartes series, and just quickly wanted to get your summary of the entire series.
GW needs to hire that guy to make their own animated series.
Okay, that's it's, yeah, you're not wrong. I definitely agree with you.
If GW doesn't snap that guy up and pay him whatever he wants, then they are idiots. I've looked on YouTube, and you've got professional people who deal with CGI in the industry, and they say that this guy's work, for someone who's mostly solo, is amazing. I mean, you've got people from all spectrums of fandom. People who like 40k, people who don't play 40k. All sides, complete all over the spectrum, saying that this guy's stuff is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's such a great story. But he started releasing Astartes, then he had his channel hacked. And then he said he might not come back. Then he did get it back. And then the fifth one, which is just mind blowing. Yeah, if GW has not already hired this guy, then I want to know what kind of drugs they're on, because they need to hire this guy.
Yeah. Well, whatever the reasons are, I mean, moving away from that, the series is. I mean, the quality is amazing, and I watched it back from the start. I watched the most recent one, or the final one, and I was blown away by it. And then I decided that I wanted to watch it from the beginning and just have each one play one after the other. You can see a slight difference in terms of, you can see it's developed and it has got better in terms of quality, a little bit, at least if you compare the last one to the first one. But it's such a great series, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he comes out with moving forward. Jay, what were your thoughts on it?
Didn't like it.
Shut your mouth.
News.
Shut your mouth. Get out of this channel.
No, obviously it's mind blowing, isn't it? And I've done sort of things like that myself. So to think how he's done that as one man is just I can't comprehend what he's done there. But
he must have one beefy
just makes you
PC.
hungry for like a full length film of something like that, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it would be on it. Yeah, as Ben said, it would be great to see an official GW animated series where you had that sort of level of
Imagine what
quality
he could get
to it.
done with like a proper budget and a team.
Yeah, I mean, there's no dialogue in it as far as I can remember. Not a single bit of dialogue. It was just the sound effects. It was cinematic. Everything about it was absolutely fantastic.
Something else that I don't want to slip by, because Astartes is amazing, but can anyone else remember that the Hell's Reach sort of mini-series?
Oh yeah, that was great.
Where the guy did it in sort of like black and white. I don't know what that's called, but that was mint as well.
Yeah, in a sort of sketchy style. Yeah, I thought that was brilliant. It did change. I think the earlier sort of series, because there has been quite a few series or seasons or whatever you want to call it for Hell's Reach, I believe. Or was it just episodes, Jay? You might be able to.
I think it was just episodes.
Just episodes. The earlier ones, in my opinion, I preferred. I think the later ones, he went a little bit more. He tried to do a bit more, sort of typical CGI. It's been a while since I've watched them, but I definitely remember there being a difference between the art style, from the later ones to the early ones.
I think the last one or two were in colour, weren't they? I didn't care for that.
Yeah, But yeah, again,
They're still good.
fantastic, because he did have dialogue in that. So, and again, I was immersed in it. I loved it. It was something that normally I'd listen to that type of stuff if I'm painting, and it's just on in the background. I'm sort of listening into it, but I'm kind of half listening, but I'm mainly focusing on what I'm actually painting. But with that, most of the time I found myself that I wasn't actually doing any painting. The paint on my brush had dried because I've just been watching the whole episode.
Yeah, pretty much. But like I say, I think the Hell's Reach one, basically I think it was just animating the audiobook for Hell's Reach. I think that's what that was.
Oh, was it? Ah, okay. Right, okay. That would explain the sort of quality of the dialogue then. But yeah, nonetheless, it was fantastic. From what I remember anyway. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to cover for this particular episode. So is there anything else that you guys want to just quickly touch on before we finish?
Nothing. I'm just like I said earlier in the video. Like I am looking forward to Pariah. Hopefully, the Necrons will get justice done, and they'll actually get the fucking Pariah models, and not get bait and switched. Like I say, because if that happens, I'll be pissed off, and I don't even collect Necrons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, time will tell. So fingers crossed for that. But
I'll take anything I can get, to be honest.
Well, I think from that video, I mean, we won't go into it now because we've run out of time, but I think how that particular video was done kind of leads me to believe anyway that something big might be around the corner, perhaps narratively and campaign-wise on a bigger scale for the Necrons and the Imperium. But we will see. And I don't know whether, obviously, everyone listening agrees with me on that, so leave your thoughts. But thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Ben and Jamie, for joining me remotely from your homes, staying safe. So yes, thank you very much for listening. Please do leave a comment and give us a like if you did enjoy the episode. If you have any feedback, feel free to leave that with us. We are interested in your feedback at this stage, obviously, because we are just starting out. But thank you very much for listening, and stay tuned for more content in the future. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Cheerio.